the recording part of it started. We will be editing this and putting it out later.
And Heidi Sandoval will be our interpreter. So, welcome everybody. This is going to be a unique educational call. That's what we've designed these for, is to give you some education on Immunocal, because we're a community, and a community that takes this product every single day, and our families take this product every day, and our kids take this product every day, et cetera, et cetera. So the more you know about it, the more valuable not only it becomes, but the more valuable you become, because you can share with people not only what the product has done, but you'll understand what it does do, and frankly, you'll understand what it doesn't do. And the gentleman I'm going to introduce you to momentarily, John Molson, is the authority of authority on this product. I mean, amongst other things, he was one of the three gentlemen that actually founded Immunotech Research way back in 1996. So he's been working with this brand since then. It's a long time, as I'm sure you would all agree. Second to that, John has been a lifelong athlete, still continues to be an athlete to this day, trains several hours a day himself. His son is also a professional athlete. And his family, for that matter, has been involved in athletics for many, many years, not only on a personal level, but also on a corporate level. His family owns the Montreal Canadian hockey team, which is one of the 5 or 6 most famous sports franchises in the world. So he's been around elite athletes his entire life, and he's very interested in performance, and has brought a real interest in that to Immunotech over the last number of years. And we're seeing some of the results of that today, not only in Immunocal Sport, but also in some of the world-class professional athletes that are now using our product as a result of John's relationships in the sporting world. In addition to that, he's an ambassador of this product. And this might be the most important thing. John has worked with the doctors, including our beloved Dr. Gustavo Brunos, worked arm in arm with him every single day for many, many years. So who better to teach you about Immunocal than the man himself, who was the co-creator of it, along with Dr. Patricia Kongshaven. So, John, I just want to welcome you to the call, my friend. Welcome, and we're going to have a great time tonight.
Hi, John. It's great to be here again.
And John, one thing I did forget to say, so I apologize. I'm going to take some pauses after I ask John a question for about 10 seconds, okay? And that is to allow Heidi Sandoval, who's translating in Spanish, to repeat the question in Spanish for our Spanish-speaking audience. And then likewise, when Mr. Molson's done, we'll take about another 10 seconds to just kind of let her catch up here, okay? Because she's got a difficult job tonight translating John and I, needless to say. So, John, welcome to the call again, my friend. How are you tonight?
We're doing great, and it's great to be here to help everybody, sharing the information that Dr. Bruno shared with me.
John, let's start at the top. Let's begin with athletes. You told me that when you speak with performance directors of pro teams that you focus on 3 key areas. First, immune function. Second, performance. And thirdly, recovery. Could you expand on each of those, please?
Sure. First of all, I want people to have a general sense of how to approach this and how coaches and these sporting directors think. Athletes at this level, sporting directors at this level, are looking for what's called marginal gains. And marginal gains become huge gains if these things are compounded over time. And so what we're looking for in those 3 areas are marginal gains over and above what the current standard is. So when we look at immune function, that's the basis of everything. You know, doesn't matter if you're talking about a high school athlete, a college athlete, a pro athlete, the weekend warrior. If you get sick, it's going to impair your performance. So we know there's a number of factors that affect our immune function, and putting the athlete through strenuous training, strenuous competition is immunosuppressive. And so by supplying glutathione, we can help minimize that and keep the athlete healthy. And there's an expression in the NFL, are you available? So you can have a star athlete, but if they're performing at 80%, they're performing at 80% versus other people that may not have a cold or the flu who are performing at 100%. So that's kind of the basis of how we talk about Immunocal with these performance directions. We start with immune function. The second one is, again, performance. And we saw very big gains in our 2 performance studies because we took, quote unquote, ordinary people. At the elite level, you're going to see marginal gains because these people are already supremely conditioned, close to performing at their maximum. But still, I draw on that anecdote from the Nike Oregon Track Club where the coach, and I didn't pay him to do this, the people at Oracle were kind enough to ask him to, give me a statement about Immunocal. And he said, at our level, performance comes down to, 1% either way. And he said, I feel that Immunocal gives us that performance. And so we have 2 performance studies, one in aerobic exercise, one in resistance exercise, both of which were spectacular. When you look at the results in the aerobic exercise, the average increase in performance was 13.5%. And in the resistance exercise, 10.5%. These are huge gains. And so even if we only talk about 1% in these elite athletes, it's still very, very important because what you're looking at is, 1% across the team on average, which, again, over the course of a year can make huge gains. And I remember talking to, the coach of the Montreal Impact many years ago, and I brought up the example. Look, I said, they do sports analytics. So I said, how many 50-50 balls do you have per year? I said, imagine improving your win rate on those 50-50 balls by 20-30%. What would that mean? So looking at things like that. And then the last one is on recovery. And there's more and more focus now on recovery. And for every hour the athlete spends on the field, they probably spend 7 to 8 hours preparing their body to train, and then post-training getting massage, ice baths, everything to recuperate, because the training you do is only as good as your body's ability to absorb it. And the key is upping the adaptability of your body and also improving the recovery so you can continue training and prevent injuries. So those are the 3 key areas that I key on when I'm talking to performance directors. And one of which was Inter Miami. I've spoken with Premier League clubs in the English Premier League as well.
Let me give Heidi a chance to catch up, and as she does that, I just want to announce again for our Spanish friends, si habla español, presiona el botón de interpret. Okay, John, let's go to our second question. Through our collaboration with sports science firm Oracle, they're able to pass on some incredibly valuable information. How did their CEO and founder, Dr. Brian Moore, describe Immunocal's primary benefit on the supplemented athletes that they work with?
Yeah, so we started collaborating with Dr. Moore even before Oracle was formed. And, to give an example, he took the British Olympic team through 3 Olympic cycles. So we had Immunocal supplementation being given to these athletes through 3 Olympic cycles. And we had this clinical data and we had anecdotal data from my friends who were world-class athletes. But now we're going into a situation where we had sports scientists working with world-class athletes. And, I asked Dr. Moore to really kind of capture how he saw Immunocal benefiting the athlete. And he talked about the fact that, you can think of it in terms of boosting the resilience of these athletes. So in essence, what you're doing is you're stressing these athletes, sometimes to the point of almost breaking them, because you see some athletes that, in the Olympics, get sick, get injured. So it's always riding a fine line between their best performances and breaking down. And what Immunocal does is gives them greater adaptability, greater resilience to be able to absorb that training, to be able to, to deal with all these insults. And so that's the way he captured it, is that Immunocal boosts the resiliency of these athletes.
Third question, John. Dr. Nathan Lewis, who's the senior scientist at Oracle, member of the English Institute of Sport, described how they track the antioxidant values in the blood of the athletes. Why do they do that?
So it's interesting. He explained to me, they have thousands of tests they run on these athletes, and they use AI to interpret the data. And he said to me, think of like you're going down a highway, and you have light standards on each side of the highway. And what they want to do is they want to keep the athletes' antioxidant levels in between those light standards. And so this helps the coach, it helps the sports science staff monitor the effects of the training on the athlete. And the reason that's so important is if it goes outside those light standards, so if the antioxidant values in the blood get too low, then you increase the risk of injury and illness. Now, when you're talking about, a high school athlete, that's one thing. But here you're talking about, the average salary in the NFL or Premier League, you're talking about millions of dollars if these guys get injured. And so it's in their interest to help monitor these things and to minimize the risk of injury and illness. And so that's why, Immunocal was a perfect fit many years ago, because they identified this risk and they developed all these tests around it. And Immunocal boosts the body's most important antioxidant. And so it all starts and ends with glutathione. And that's why, we had this relationship, and this relationship stayed together because we had, the best product on the market to boost glutathione. And here you have identified all these tests that look at antioxidant values in the blood of these athletes. And so maintaining normal glutathione levels really helped these soccer clubs, both in Europe and here, reduce missed time due to injury and illness.
I'm going to deviate from the questions for a second, John. We'll give Heidi a chance to catch up as well. I know you and I both recently watched the World Championships in track and field. I know we're both big fans of that sport. And it was interesting to listen to the announcers talk about, because just for everybody else's benefit, they're near the end of their season. These guys have been competing since May, and in some cases indoors since last January. So it's a long season. And they were talking about how some of them have worn down so much during the season. All I could think of is, we got to get this product, to elite athletes as well as to, the weekend warrior. But in listening to that, the recovery seems to be the issue with all elite athletes. Doesn't matter the sport. It seems like, after 4 or 5, 6 months of a grueling pace, traveling, competing, training, living in hotels, etc., all of these people wear down. What are we seeing with some of the athletes that are on Immunocal that are in that, Olympic cycle that we're now in going into Paris next summer, for example? What are we seeing compared, athlete on Immunocal, athlete not on Immunocal? What's that differentiation that we're seeing, in the Immunocal athlete versus the non?
Well, there's many parallels between what happens to the athlete and what happens in the surgery room. And so, we've seen, and it's interesting because, our focus over 25 years and before we formed a company was looking at quality of life and, strength, 6-minute walk tests, how these patients recover post-surgery, and, how they deal with different types of interventions. And, just like we've seen with the athlete, we've been able to boost the resiliency of these patients to do better and to improve quicker and to be more resilient post-surgery. And so that's what we've seen with athletes. And, that's one of the universal themes that we've heard through Oracle, as well as from coaches, that we improve recovery. And so, as I say, if you can move the needle with international athletes versus athletes that don't have that benefit, And even if you're talking about 0.5% a day, that's still huge.
So let's talk now a little different subject. Let's talk about the elderly and Immunical's application here. What did Dr. Wolfdroge tell you was the most important healthy aging intervention, and what was the second most important intervention?
The most important anti-aging intervention is exercise, according to him. And he said number 2 is Immunocal. And the concept of healthy aging is something that Dr. Droge was really interested in. He was a world authority on it, and that's why when he came over from Germany, he had to retire due to government regulations, and he came here. He was the one who designed the study that looked at Immunical's effect in resistance exercise in the elderly. The study that we did in the elderly was individuals between 65 and 80 years old. And he was the one who wanted to examine that. Now, why is that important? After the 4th decade of life, Dr. Droge identified that there's a very important shift in the antioxidant status in your body. And so you essentially go from neutral to more oxidative. And this also coincides with changes in your physiology. So we lose muscle velocity, we lose muscle strength. And, there's a saying with regard to exercise, the less you do, the less you can do. And so why it's so important to use Immunocal as you age is because, everything, your muscles support everything. And so if you maintain muscle strength, and you saw through that study that we did in the elderly, we improved muscle strength, that allows you to move. And, rather than just being restricted from the standpoint of the types of movements you do, it allows you to move to do things like yoga, Tai Chi, which, are beyond just a linear movement, but really reflect how your body is capable of moving. And that's really, very, very important in terms of articulating your joints through the full range of motion, your hips, your ankles, your feet, etc. Whereas if you don't have the muscles to support that, then you get this compounding phenomena where, unhealthy aging, where you lose muscle mass, your legs become weaker, your balance goes, you're subject to falls. And so it's kind of snowballs. So Immunocal plays a very important role in helping you maintain and build your muscle mass as you age, which is very important, as it permits you to move more and move beyond what a weaker person would be able to do.
It is amazing as we watch the organization age, how many people are aging slowly. I know we can't make that claim, but when I look at some of my colleagues that when we began this business, 26 years ago, were in their 50s that are now in their late 70s and even 80s in some cases, how remarkably they seem like they are doing very, very well with aging. They're enjoying the aging process instead of hating it like people who are not on Immunocal seem to. Would you agree with that?
I mean, you have your physiological age and your chronological age. And the whole idea is there's been lots of research to show that if you take care of yourself, you can be in your late 70s and perform like your early 60s, essentially. So you can retain that muscle velocity, retain that muscle strength to a great degree by doing the right type of exercise. And that's, so it's got to be beyond just walking. And so, we're a creature of environment. The same way, you identify an athlete and you train the athlete based on the specific movements in their sport. In life, it can't just be walking because, I'll give you an example. I mean, if you're only walking and you come onto a slippery surface and all of a sudden your leg gets outside that normal range of motion, you're going to be very weak outside that normal range of motion, right? So the idea is to, for athletes, they have to train, dynamically to be able to jump to a ball or jump to, play tennis, etc. But for us, we've got to think of, times when we lose our balance and we can catch ourselves because we've been working on our balance, and we also have the leg strength to be able to absorb that, rather than ending up in the OR with a broken hip. We've been able to save ourselves because we have the leg strength, and we're doing the type of training to be able to do that.
So, John, let me ask you a final question here on the preventive medical market. How does our prehabilitation work demonstrate a key role for Immunocal in this area?
So, the preventative medicine market in the U.S. is probably around $300 billion. And, the reason there's so much interest in the prehabilitation is because we end up saving the hospital anywhere from $1,000 to $2,000 per patient, in that range. Because these patients, because they go on an exercise program and are supplemented with Immunocal prior to surgery and post-surgery, they have less infection. They don't have to be readmitted to the hospital post-surgery. So there's a huge savings. And, this is the same idea when we see, athletes that are stressed or executives that are stressed. You won't get as sick as often, you have a greater capacity to deal with all those stressors. So that's, one element of how Immunocal may help that preventative market.
And you're absolutely right. It's such a huge market, and it's always better to prevent than to treat anytime, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. Well, John, this has been great. I hope it helped everybody. Okay, this is for education purposes. That's why we're doing these videos, and that's why we're doing these calls. The more that you know, the more valuable you become, first and most importantly, to yourself. Every time I listen to John speak, or Dr. Gutman speak, or Dr. Palafox, or going back in time, of course, Dr. Bunos, Dr. Kongshaw, doing it for me, okay? I'm doing it for my education of the product that I put in my body each and every day, okay? Now, secondly, my family, okay? I want them to be healthy and to get the great health that we've been able to have already, and want to continue to have, because to John's point, preventative medicine is the best medicine, and that's really what Immunocal is intended to do. And then finally, of course, our education, so that we can go out and we can share this great news with people that we know, our loved ones, our friends, and frankly, even strangers. So, John, I want to thank you. I want to thank Heidi for translating. I know she's on the other line translating. We can't hear her in English, but hopefully everybody in Spanish can hear her. So thank you, Heidi. Thank you, everyone else, for coming tonight. John, I'll give you the last word. Anything else you'd like to share?
Yeah, so, the way you have to think about your health is the same way an athlete thinks about their training, which is win the day. So don't think about 10 years from now. Think about doing all the right things today, and then doing all the right things tomorrow. The same way the athlete adapts to training, you adapt to all the things you do to your body during the course of the day. So make sure you're providing positive stimulus to your body. You're exercising, you're taking time to yourself, meditation, yoga, stretching, rolling out, eating properly, taking Immunocal. And it's like putting money in the bank by investing in yourself. And so invest in yourself so you can invest in others.
Great. Thank you so much, John. Thank you, everybody, tonight. And we're going to do another call. We'll announce that in the next couple of weeks. And thank you all for your time this evening.
Let us go ahead and bring Heidi back in here, John. On there. Hi, Heidi. Thank you for doing
Hello.
tonight. Appreciate
Thank you.
that. So hopefully everybody got what they were looking for here. Really appreciate you, young lady, for doing all that for us.
Gracias a todos por ayudarnos y conectarse el día de hoy.
All right. Have a great evening, everyone.
Okay. Bye for now.
Nos vemos. Hasta luego. Bye bye. Thank you,
Bye.
John Molson. Bye bye.
Okay, gracias.